Hi students, so this is the first video of our second roadmap, and in this video I'll be covering anonymous function, and these are the subtopics I'll be covering in this video. I have already made it very clear in my previous video what will be the topics throughout this roadmap. So let's start with what is anonymous function. Okay, so before starting with anonymous function, let me talk about very briefly what is a normal function. So a normal function is basically, it helps us to do some operation or calculation. So and the idea behind using a normal function is, if we don't use any function, so let's say we have to do some operation again and again in our program, and we are not using any function. Whenever we are in need, we are just writing code again and again. So we are repeating codes again and again. So what we are doing here is basically against the principle of dry code. So in software engineering, we have a concept of dry code, and this is a principle that says don't repeat yourself. Okay, so and what we are doing here, we are just repeating our codes again and again. So instead of repeating, what we should do is we just define a function and we just put all those codes inside that function, and whenever we are in need, we just call that function and use it. So this is the purpose of a normal function, and irrespective of any language. Okay, and in any if I talk about Python, so we use a keyword def to define a function, and in JavaScript we use function keyword to define a function, and actually this differs from language to language. Okay, now another important point is a function name. So whenever we are defining a function, we have to give a function name. This is basically the identifier of that function. So basically, if we talk about Python, we have a syntax like this: def, then function name, then argument. This is actually optional, but we can return some result. Okay, and before result, then some statements. Okay, these statements actually imply analogous to the operation that I was talking about. Okay, so yeah, this is actually the syntax. We all know about this. So now, what is anonymous function? So as the name suggests, this function doesn't have any specific name or specific identifier attached to it. So as I said, in this type of normal function, we have this function name as its identifier, but in case of anonymous function, it doesn't have any name attached to it. But the idea behind this scenario is actually same. It returns some function object. As I have already said in my previous videos, that in Python everything is object. Okay, whether it is a variable or function or anything, an iterable, everything is object. So a function is also an object. Okay, so another thing is, in Python, anonymous function, Lambda Expression, Lambda Abstraction, all are synonymous. Okay, so yeah, that's all about what is anonymous function. And we use, next topic is syntax. So before talking about syntax, so we use a new keyword that is called lambda. So this keyword actually helps us to define an anonymous function. Okay, actually this keyword makes a normal function an anonymous function. Okay, so what is its syntax? So syntax is basically very similar and very simple. Lambda, then arguments. These arguments can be a single argument or multiple arguments. There is no restriction. And then a single expression. Okay, this is very important. Just underline the word single expression. Okay, this is actually one drawback of lambda expression or anonymous function, because we can't use multiple expressions here. This is a restriction. So this is the syntax. This okay. So yeah. So next, talk about an example. That will help you to understand the topic more clearly. Okay, so let's talk about example. So let's say I have a string, a date, and I want to split the date and put the day, the month, and the year value in a list. So what I mean is, let's say I have a string my date, and this is like let's say 12 and 2012, and I want to split this date and put all the day values, then month values in a list. So my result equal to, we can use this my dot split, and this is the delimiter. Okay, so my result will be, first element will be 12, then second element will be 12. So this function splits this string using this delimiter. Okay, now if we just put this operation in a function, okay, so if we use a normal function, so let's say my function, then it takes a string as its argument, so let's say str, and what it does is return str dot split, and the so let me just make it more generic, so str then delimiter, then just use this delimiter. Okay, so it returns the list splitting the string using this delimiter. Okay, so this is more generic. Okay, now if I just want to use this, what do you have to do? You have to call this function, so print then my func, and inside this we have to, first argument is my date, so 12 12 and then 2012, and the second argument is my delimiter. So just let me show you the output first. So python then video what is it, 13.py. see, now if I want to use anonymous function, so what do you have, what is the syntax? I have talked about the syntax, so let me show you how it works. So as I said, first is lambda, then arguments. So here the arguments as str and del. Okay, then the single expression. So what it does is it just does this one. Okay, now as I say, this expression, this is called lambda expression. Okay, and what it returns actually an object, a function object, and if we just want to use it, we just want to print it, so we have to give an identifier name explicitly. Okay, so if we just run this, there will be no error. Okay, this just returns an object, so we can use like this. So let's say my func equal to this one. So this my func actually contains this function object, anonymous function object, and if we just want to print it, so my func and call it, then output will be actually same. Sorry, I'm missing two record. Oh, sorry, I have not passed the argument actually. Sorry for that. This one is actually related to this one, so I just messed it up. Okay, sorry. See, both output is actually same, and it has to be. So this is the how we use lambda expression. Okay, now if we just syntactically it is more simpler to use. We don't have any return keyword here. So as I said, this only supports a single expression. So it what it does is it basically takes these two arguments, this does this job, and this returns a function object or an anonymous function object. Okay, now we talked about what is anonymous function, what is its syntax. I have shown you an example also. Now the last thing is, what is its use? When should we use anonymous function instead of a normal function? So the use is basically, as I said, this anonymous function doesn't have any identifier attached to it. So, and we have a concept of higher order function. So what is higher order function? Higher order functions are those functions that take another function as its argument and to do some job. Okay, so I can give you a similar example. Like when you talk about polynomial expression, there we have a concept of higher order terms. So let's say I have an expression like n plus n square plus n cube plus n to the power 4. So here, n square, how we are getting n square? We are multiplying n with n to get n square. So this is, in this case, n square is higher order term, n is lower order term. Now the next term, the next term of this sequence is n cube. So how we are getting n cube? We are multiplying n square with n to get n cube. Just same concept. We are just using a lower order function to do some higher order job. Okay, so this is the concept. So we have some functions in Python also, like map, filter, reduce. I'll talk about these functions in detail in my next videos. Then I will show you examples using lambda expression also. Before that, let me show you just a simple example. So whenever we are in need of a function that is, the use of this function is not much in my whole program, or I can say that if the function is used only once or twice, then that is the use of anonymous function. So let me show you an example. Let's say I have a function that takes a string as its argument or a name as its argument, and what it does is it concatenates a prefix to this name. I mean, depending on the user's choice. If user just passes let's say Mr., then it returns Mr. plus that name. If it passes doctor, then doctor plus name. So depending on the user's choice, it varies. Okay, I mean the output varies. Okay, so let me show you the example. So my main function, I am using it like this. So this is the normal function def attach. Okay, so what it does is it takes a name as its argument. Okay, and what it does is it return lambda, then prefix plus name. Okay, and that's all. Now if I just call this function, so total name equal to, let's say, attach, and I'm passing a name, let's say Ellie. So what this total name actually contains, so as you can see here, this function returns this one. So as I said, this expression, lambda expression, returns a function object. So this total name actually contains a function object. And I mean, what is the purpose of this function object? What it does is it takes another argument, and what it does is it just concatenates that argument with Ellie. Okay, now to use it, let's say print total name, and let's say I want to just attach Mr. Okay, now let me show you the example first. See, Mr. Ellie. Now if I just pass doctor, it becomes Dr. Ellie. So this total name, as I say, is the function object, and I am calling this function object and passing this argument. So this argument is my, I mean, this is the function object definition, and here this is the argument, and this argument is actually analogous to this doctor. So what it does is prefix plus name, doctor plus Ellie, and returns this. Okay, so that's all about, I mean, today's discussion. And in next video, when I'll start with map function, then filter, then reduce. I mean, those functions, those are higher order functions, and those functions use another function to do some job. And I will show you examples, and I will explain to you that how we can use lambda expression in those functions. Okay, so yeah, enough for today. Stay tuned. Bye bye.